Should we get this thing started since we're all here?
Oh, so you know Kathy and Jerry are coming?
Well, I haven't heard from Kevin.
Oh.
But I did hear from Frank. Frank
Yes.
is on vacation for 3 whole days. At least that's what he said, 3 days.
This weather is terrible.
Yeah.
It is what it is, I guess.
It is.
Only this week, there's gonna rain all week, and then last week it was pretty nice. Gruesome.
I do regret turning my heat off for the season. No. Alrighty, let's start this thing. Yes. Kathleen, Frank are not here, Deborah's not here. But
And Jerry.
Jerry's not here. But you, Jerry, Kathleen.
I counted as 2.
All right, so we'll all be voting tonight.
Including me?
Including
Wow.
you. You are the senior alternate. You're only alternate. All righty, yeah, approval of minutes?
Motion.
Any problems, issues? No? Your motion to approve, or your second?
Second.
Your second, all in favor?
I,
Aye. All right. Opposed? No? We're good. Okay.
Except for Hank.
All right, no public comment tonight. Other than thumbs up, I guess. Short-term rental application. Ooh,
Right on time.
wow, we're moving along.
That's right. We have one this week, or this month. It's a new application, so it is bound to the 30 limit. It's at 39 Green Hill Road in Jackson. It has a 2-bedroom septic on file, no building permit, and a 2-bedroom tax card. And they're advertising a max of 6, which meets our requirement.
2 bedroom.
Meets all the requirements. Cute little place.
Do I have a motion to accept?
man, I have just one reservation, I don't think it would keep it from being approved, but the Green Hill Road is not maintained by the town. And I don't know how that will impact any rent or short-term rental.
When you say it's not maintained by the town, it's not a town road?
It's a town right-of-way, Class 6, not maintained.
Not all of it.
The lower end, the gate is pretty close to the,
Where, is this up above the gate?
I don't know where 39 Green Hill is.
39 is really low.
yeah, I would think it
that'd
would
be a
be,
little closer to town,
Yeah, there's no.
oh, okay, so I'm way off. This would be way, way down there.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No comment.
You withdraw your comment?
I will destroy my comment.
All right, do I hear I had a motion to accept? I had a motion to accept, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, okay. We're good. I want to make a quick comment regarding short-term rentals, and that is that there was a question regarding an application that was received by the town, and I don't believe we have it yet. But it prompted a requirement to check in with council. And I asked Jason whether or not we needed to do anything with our current ordinance based on the Supreme Court ruling. And he said, no. He said, what you've got, there's nothing in that that suggests that we need to make any changes. And so I said, oh, okay.
To be fair, you suggested that $250 advice before we even got it.
But, to be fair, yes. You know, you ask questions that, you know, you hope you know the answer to.
Right.
And that's, okay, so. Capital Improvement Program. Not everybody reported last time. Who didn't report last time? Would you like to report?
Sure.
And who else?
I didn't either, but I haven't had the chance to
Okay. So
spoke to the ambulance.
You're not prepared.
I'm not prepared.
Okay, so we're not gonna listen to you. Don't put you on the spot. Next
Okay.
time.
Yeah, next time.
Okay.
So we were looking into a community land or housing trust of some sort in connection with the town in some way. And so mostly I just kind of went around and tried to talk to different people and kind of get a sense of what different things were available. So I talked to the new director at the Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition, Jen Stillwell, but she has just started the job and she's really just kind of getting things going, you know, for herself, and she's willing to help do some research and things like that for us. I talked to the two women that are doing the Bluebirds project, which is a different sort of thing. It's a for-profit initiative,
Yeah.
but it is toward building affordable housing, and so. I talked to an attorney at the New Hampshire Municipal Association about a couple legal questions, and a guy named Brian Pope, who is the housing navigator in Dover. So we talked a bit.
Sounds like an interesting position.
And I have a few links that I'll send after the meeting, but to me it seems like the likely structure, and you can almost do anything you want, but the likely structure would be that the town would form some sort of housing commission and an expendable trust that money would be put into by the town. That housing commission would really only be there to approve projects, you know, sort of target the money or the land or whatever resources. But the housing commission would likely then work with either a nonprofit like J Home, who would then sort of do the legwork and the management and the maintenance and just run the properties. Or could even work with like a for-profit developer. You know, the housing commission could really work with whomever it wants. But the point is that housing commission would be in control, but wouldn't have to be doing, you know, all the work, especially if there's rental properties and things like that. But it's one way that's pretty difficult. In general, I think, you know, something like this needs to have enough tangibility, enough definition for people to actually get behind it. But it sort of needs to be as flexible as possible to sort of react to any opportunity that comes its way. The really the most straightforward, you know, thing would be that the town acquires land or money and then puts that land or land purchase with that money out to either, you know, profit or developer in some fashion, and, you know, the housing's created. But there's some other ways that can be done. You know, one is that the town holds on to the land, if it's land it has, and then, you know, under like a 99-year lease, you know, puts it out there, but that way stays in control of the land. The town could bridge market price and affordable price gaps. You know, so if a family or a couple could afford a $250,000 home, but the cheapest one available in Jackson was $350,000, the town could bridge that gap, and then under the agreement that property would be put into affordable, you know, availability in perpetuity. If the town owned the land and held on to the land, then someone could, you know, do the construction themselves and maybe afford that since they don't have to pay for the land, and could then also sell that structure at market value, though you know, under the restriction that it goes to someone with some income level, because they'd be selling just the structure and someone else could buy just the structure. The town still has the land, they can afford it, etc. To me, the lowest hanging fruit, though I'm not really sure how to go after it, are ADUs.
ADUs.
I mean, that's something that can be just thrown up on, you know, tons of properties in town. But you know, I think a lot of us live in towns like Jackson, in part because we don't want to live shoulder to shoulder with somebody else. Where ADUs, I think, would be really useful is if we could incentivize them in some way associated with second homes. Because there you have a situation where a second homeowner that wants to use that second home some part of the year, they put up an ADU, they rent the ADU, you know, full time. Now they have that income plus, you know, a caretaker of sorts for the property maybe, and they could then use the main property as much as they wanted, and even short-term rent it for that matter. You know, so they kind of get all of that, and if there's some way the town could spark that sort of thing,
That interest.
you know, whether it's a tax credit or, you know, the lawyer I talked to, he seemed to think that there were tax incentives that we could use. But I think that's something we may need to sit down with our council.
Not that we currently have, but we could employ.
Right, for, you know, property that's full-time occupied, or an ADU that's full-time occupied, or something like that. Yeah, the town could kind of help with the construction of an ADU, but how does the town then govern the use of that ADU down the road? I think a tax incentive where the town can always say, okay, you're not using that ADU full-time anymore, so you're not gonna get the tax, you know, credit if you don't.
Is that what that article that Barb sent around about what Vermont's doing? Were they doing a tax credit there? Were they doing something like that?
Massachusetts does it a lot for full-time occupied.
There was some article that Barb shared with us that I sent it to you that it's by Dartmouth, and that the town is giving a tax credit to get people to be able to afford homes because they have a problem with short-term with rentals and homeowners, and they were doing that tax credit if it was a low-income person, and somehow you had to qualify to define that, which is clearly defined anyplace else, but they were giving tax credits for people.
I think in Massachusetts, there was a lot of trying to limit short-term rentals and make properties available for workforce that, you know, like Cape Cod really needs. And, you know, so it's more, you know, home that was full-time occupied. I don't know if it had to be owner or it could be renter, but that full-time occupied home got taxed in, you know, credit or some sort of thing.
Could the town, because just yesterday, the budget was approved, and part of that was a lot of money set aside for affordable housing. I don't know what the implications of what that part of the budget is for, if it's like the town could add to their trust or help supplement, because where would the money come that would be going into that trust?
Well, one way would be part of the budget. The town would vote on it.
Just
It would
allocate
go
it.
into an expendable trust, and it would be the housing commission, I think, that would then run that trust and, send the money or the land out to wherever opportunities come up. Grants, would also be a funding source. Certainly if the town is involved, I think that would certainly help, in acquiring grants. One of the things that the woman from Bluebird said is that when you're looking for grants, they're usually looking for much bigger projects. Getting a grant for, a couple units is tough. Donations,
Okay.
and probably more so, I'd say a little more likely we could, the town could get land donations. And it's, I think we have to look at it somewhat long-term. If the town is raising money through the budget, we're probably not gonna get next year enough to actually jump up and do
Right.
something. It may take a couple of years to accumulate funds to, get something going.
Does the town currently own a lot of property that,
When we looked at it, it has these tiny little pieces that really aren't good for much, a couple of those. The biggest thing is that it sort of owns the rights to
Development rights.
development rights out of one of the townhouse properties out by Dana Place. I don't know where that's all at this point.
Was that across the street?
I don't know which
It's on the east side of
Yeah.
Yeah,
Route
it's,
16.
it's,
Yes.
it's not Dana Place, it's on the opposite side. Yeah. You're right.
What could be done with that, I don't know. That is, a large part of Jackson rental properties is that stuff up there. It's mostly medical staff, I think, that take advantage of that. It's pretty pricey, I believe. Also, the attorney at Municipal Association, he seemed to think that we could also set our own formulas. That, we weren't limited to an 80% of median county income or something like that. That we can set for the, whatever entity, I think of J. Holmes, could set its own formulas as to who, because one of the things is that in our discussions has come up is that more so than quote unquote workforce housing, Jackson just really needs housing for young families and young people to move in,
first time?
community support housing. And, the workforce housing and that, lower income level, it's certainly needed, but it's more likely a transient population. It's not a population that's gonna contribute to the community as much. Whereas, if you have a couple that are both working at AMC, their combined income probably exceeds that 80%, whatever rule. So Jackson could set its own formulas.
Yeah, I think part of the issue we have here also is, say, even if somebody's earning at I think our average household income here is only supposed to be like $70,000. And if somebody's earning at the average, there's no property that you can actually purchase with that kind of income
Right.
anywhere in Jackson. You're lucky if you're able to even rent a place here. There's nothing. Unless you have a couple of $1 million right now, it's hard to get any housing here.
Is there a requirement for people like police to live in the town?
And actually, several years ago, we got into, one of the initiatives. And I think it was part of when we worked with that consultant as part of the grant. And, one of the things we talked about a lot was, Jackson can't even house its own teachers and
Right.
police force and road department and, et cetera.
Nobody.
But then we started talking to Chris Purley and the teachers, what they're saying is that, sometimes those people in those positions like to live outside of town.
Oh, yeah.
Because you run into situations where you go to a party because you live in town, you know everybody in town, so you just,
Particularly
personally,
a small
you
town.
go to a party,
I can
and
understand.
someone you arrested yesterday is also at that
Yeah.
party.
And then you become self-conscious of not
Or
drinking.
or the parents whose kid you failed,
Yeah,
And so, sometimes the people that we would think we'd really want living in town would like to distance
Yeah.
themselves off the job a bit. So,
Especially a town this size.
we're, say, again, workforce is a little bit
yeah.
hard.
Initially, it appears to be counterintuitive, but then when you mention what you just did,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
But the one thing is, when I talk to, but Brian might understand with the CEO of the Eagle, he didn't have anybody from the valley working for him. They were all coming from north of the Notch, or even from over in Chatham and that area. And, to me, one of the real negatives to that, other than the fact that you have a workforce that, is somewhat tenuous in terms of getting to work. But one of the real negatives is that, for a place like the Eagle, especially if you're staying there, staff that can really talk about the area and, give you advice as, what to do tomorrow and where to go for a good dinner and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of huge for,
Yeah, Greg-
customer service.
Greg Boyer used to be the,
Yeah,
yeah, the chair. He used to talk to us about that all the time.
And,
It's impossible. People living 30 miles away.
right, you have someone from Berlin or Gorham,
Yeah.
and someone from Chatham, they're not gonna be able to tell you what good restaurants are in the area,
Right.
what the sites are, yeah. So, that's it.
Oh, that's good, a lot of good information.
On tax incentives, with equalized evaluations of the state of educational funding, it would have to be really clear that it's, state approved of whatever incentives you give out tax-wise,
Right.
because that would just put us into a,
Yeah, but as I said, going into it, my assumption was that the towns in New Hampshire, or at least towns below a certain size, could not offer tax incentives because we just didn't have the authority from the state. And maybe, there's a particular, and I've got the RSA, it's 75:1-A. And it's a low-income tax credit program of some sort. And I started to read it, and it's really, really dense. So that was something that this attorney at the Municipal Association pointed me to. And so I don't know if what Jackson might be able to do tax-wise is very limited, or whether it's more open than I had assumed. But again, I think that's something we would sit down with council to get a definitive answer on. To me, the three things that we would need that sort of advice would be, should we set up a housing commission, that sort of formal structure? What kind of tax incentives are available to us? And then just to verify if we can set our own income formulas or any kind of deeded restrictions or et cetera.
looking at it from a capital improvements program, my sense of that, and the reason we included it was, is that that's part of our capital as a community. And yet we don't necessarily, I mean, you talked about possible ownership of stuff or not owning stuff, and just rather creating an environment where people can actually provide some affordable housing with some financial incentive. For me, the question is twofold. One is, as you say, do you need to actually create a town organization for that of some kind? The other is, you know, how do you fund it, and how do you get folks to be willing to say, yeah, this is a critical part of what we do, and we're willing to put cash in the coffers to do it. I haven't lived here forever, but and the number of opportunities we've had for affordable housing while I've been here have been pretty small. I think we heard, the first time we've heard something close to that, we've heard it twice. I think one was the Davis properties, where he was converting a house into apartments, and we did that one. And he mentioned the word workforce. So it was like, that was the first time I think we had anything where we were doing that. And the second one is the preliminary conversation we had just this last meeting, a couple of meetings. But I'm just thinking through, there's not a lot of incentive right now, there's not a lot of drive to push somebody to do something, but even if you have somebody who's willing to do something, like it appears like Mel might be on what he's doing, we have nothing to give him right now to incentivize it, to say, yeah, hey. And in fact, he's looking at, you know, he could do 8 units, except that he needs a road. And only 4 units if he doesn't, and what would we pay to have 4 more units of affordable housing in town? As the first opportunity in a very long dry spell.
It would be great if there were a tax classification like current use. You know, someone willing to put their property into this particular tax classification where, you know, it would then restrict the rental price or the sale price of the properties.
Yeah.
But then at least the property tax, you know, I mean, it'd still be a structure tax,
Yeah.
you know, but the property tax, you know, the land tax would at least be, you know, diminished or almost, you know, zero. You know, which would be an incentive for a developer.
Yeah. And that's the other question, of whether or not it actually has to be cash, or whether or not it can be some kind of offset.
Right.
I have a friend in Southwest Harbor who was on the board of their housing authority, but they had a whole infusion of money from the Rockefeller Foundation that put them right over the top.
Sure.
You know, and the Rockefellers have been involved in, you know, dessert for, you know, generations.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, it wasn't out of the blue that it got there. But I don't think we have any Rockefellers.
We don't have any old money, Jack. We have some old land, though.
Yeah, we have old land, and yeah, the farms weren't great money makers. I mean, that wasn't that hasn't been kicked down the road is, oh, well, we've got, 400 acres here and we'd love to put it into, reasonable housing.
I mean, Jackson does have some land. We have what we're sitting on right here, which is fairly extensive. Jackson could put up a few units without impacting the overall property that much. There's also the garage property across the street. And if Jackson were simply supplying a place to build, Jackson holds on to the land, someone can afford to build on it because they're just putting up the structure, 1,000 square feet would be 250,000 probably to put up. That's, might be affordable to a young family or a couple. Limited, 1,000 square feet is a little bit bigger than the Peterson's building, I think they're 800. But you're limited to that, it's 3 or 4 of them, and it's a start.
Yeah.
And Jackson's already has what it needs to do that. We're willing to position the land in that way.
Yeah, 1,000 square feet doesn't buy you a family property.
No, it's more young, and that's really the most challenging thing in Jackson is where does a young couple or a young couple with a single child go beyond that? It's the starter home that's really the difficult nut. But grab what you can, I guess. Is,
Lot to think about.
yeah, what do you ask for?
Thank you.
So in order to get a housing commission, you'd have to lay out how it was going to be formed. And I don't know if there's any RSAs that give us the
Yeah, there's 674.
Yeah, there are a couple out there.
saying how you can do it, and as to whether they would be elected or appointed by the selectmen. And then you'd have to spell out their duties fairly clearly as to what they're doing.
All of that is to be determined.
Which would, all that has to be done before you even.
Right. It's more, what is the skeleton of it, and what makes sense to pursue, and then we start backfilling and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I sat in on a seminar for the federal opportunities for grants. And it's like, and even though the ploy for attracting us to attend was that, they were going to use a consultant and they were focusing on communities that were less than 10,000 people. And it was like, okay, yeah, and they're looking at 8 different communities that they would be looking at. They had them 75 to 10, 5 to 75, 25 to 5, and 2 with the under 2,500. But it was like, yeah, but we really would like to have somebody that has at least 2,000. So it's like, okay.
Check.
Yeah, it's like, okay, why am I doing this here? Why? And these are all really well-meaning people, and they've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and they're trying to drive it down to small, but, I mean, not closet size, and they think we're closet size. And so then it gets to that point around a housing commission, building infrastructure, or, doing the work for grants when the community that it's being directed toward is so small. Looking at the budget stuff, for example, the state says that we only have 856 people in town, and that's how they assessed us for funding for bridges. They're going to give us $8,000. So it was really.
I heard somewhere that during the summer, you know, when tourist season is at its peak, the valley is the fourth largest municipality in the state.
And that's part of the difficulty is that we don't have a full-time population, but we have an infrastructure of homes and community that's much larger.
So our taxpayer population is
It's
much
much
higher
larger,
than
you know,
our
but
full-time. That doesn't count.
it doesn't count in anything for the funding, either on the federal level or at the state level. They don't look at that.
The whole northern half of the state, I think, just doesn't even exist as far as Concord is concerned.
Right.
You know, it's-
And even though, you know, how much of the economy, you know, we drive
Yeah.
in the state, we really don't get much.
And, yeah, on the ADU front, I've been trying to take a look to see what would an ADU look like. You know, I have a 3-acre property, and
Mhm.
it used to be 2 separate lots. What if I put an ADU in what used to be an old 1-acre lot, before the lots were merged, and the 1,000-foot doesn't buy you squat. It really, yeah, you can get a single bedroom with a reasonable size kitchenette and what would be about the size of maybe a small family room.
Is that what is defined as an ADU, is 1,000 square feet?
800.
Yeah, our ADU is 1,000 square feet.
It could be wrong, I think that.
Because they seem, they went from what,
They're a single bedroom and a loft. And then, you know,
and then they go,
and I've never been in one, but I assume it's, you know, small kitchen, living room area. Yeah, the box, old, you know, log cabin that's being taken down. And I went up there to look and, you know, I was there as a kid, so you don't remember, your scale is different. I went up there and I'm like, oh my God, family of 6 grew up in this thing. It's smaller than a mobile home.
But that's with the beds like this,
Yeah,
in the loft,
It's,
with
it's,
no
it's,
egress.
it's a bedroom, and then there's an open loft,
Yeah,
and then there's a basement. And that was it for, you know,
yeah.
4 kids and.
And I grew up in one of those, not a cabin, but I had 4 sisters, you know, family of 7, very small home.
Yeah, because we were thinking about, you know, we have 4 acres next to us. And we were gonna look at potentially building an ADU with 1,000 square feet when we'd build a house. We'd have to build a house.
Well, the thing
We were
is,
looking for a son.
and the cost factor, you're looking at, even for 1,000 square feet, you're looking at about $280,000.
Mhm.
And
So I
so,
just built a garage and
you know, even if you had it where you built a garage and then you put something over the garage, which is what I kind of looked at and said, okay, that's cool. Because I at least get the utility of a garage. It doesn't cut it.
yeah, my living loft that we just built is almost 900 square feet. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, for us, it would be we would have to put in a septic, a well, all of those things
Yeah.
add up
Yeah.
up here.
So on that note, there is in a couple of weeks a conference in Lee, and it's about developing housing without infrastructure. I'm kind of hoping that's pointed towards smaller towns like
Yeah.
us, you know, that don't, you know, if the town doesn't have sewer or, you know, water, then good chance it's not a very big town.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to that and see if there's any gathered there.
Still not an easy nut to crack. Any other reports tonight?
Oh, yeah. No, you talked about the town office, but you have something about solar?
Oh, I did very little in the town office, just that, in talking with the ladies that, it should be considered, but
I think as we talked, and it says in the minutes, I asked if Frank would follow up on that.
No, I thought you had solar power.
you did.
Yeah,
Oh, we did that? Did I miss that? Maybe?
I have things to talk about solar.
Right.
yes.
I went to this, when was it, Monday or Tuesday? The beginning of the week, they had a solar at the Whitney. I went to, which was, I listened to a person that I've known for many years tell stories about solar, but I didn't get much nuts and bolts out of it, although there was a guy from the electric co-op, which is an important aspect of any solar installation, and he was just trying to sell the battery packs now, the new technology. There was a guy from Generac Generators that has gone over to, not over to, but is including the batteries as part of their program. But, I mean, I have some figures. I think for
these battery packs, is that so you can store energy if
well,
the grid
the
goes
co-op
down?
would time your meter for the batteries. For off-peak,
Mhm.
you would charge them and then you would put that back online, or they would put it back online through electronic switching during peak demand hours. And they're giving you a break to charge it, and then they're paying you a pretty good price to put it back onto the grid. But just so that you know what we're, okay, let me get it right. Okay, 36 kW, which would be what they could put on the Whitney building. And the installation there of just the collectors was 104,500. It's a sizable array, 80, I think 86 or 87 panels. So then the battery pack that would go with that, because you could use the solar to charge the batteries and save more money and still sell it back. But the battery pack was $36,200. So that's substantial money. I've gotten 3 different bids. They're all within range of each other. I know the formula they're using because they're just getting a GPS plot of the buildings. So they've got the Whitney roof, the school. I have a proposal for the school, the Whitney, and the old transfer station site, which would be a ground array. That could be almost anything we wanted to put into it. If you wanted to put $200,000 into that area, you could, because it's a pretty good size piece of ground. And when I was up there with the guy, he said, it's great, you have to talk to the power company to see what the infrastructure upgrade would be with the transformers and maybe even transmission lines. Although I think we're okay with the transmission lines. I found the co-op very difficult to deal with. They would give me almost no information. As far as, I said, I'm trying to bring this to the town to give them an idea of how much money, it's gonna cost. And, no, we can't do that. We have to know what the array is. Well, I can't tell you what the array is until. And then, so then I did get a few things. If it's over 36 kilowatts, 36,000 kilowatts, 36,000 watts. You don't, if it's under that, you don't have to pay an engineering study. If it's over that, then you have to pay them, and they won't tell you how much that would be, because they don't know how long the engineers are going to take to survey the lines and calculate. So there is almost no help until I did get to a woman who was really nice, where the town is a commercial enterprise, so she does commercial infrastructure. She helped me out a lot, and at least put me onto some of this. One was a plot of the grid, so we know how much capacity is going by on Carter Notch roads. We can get that calculation. So finally, I can get, some information, but I still don't, they won't tell me how much a transformer, oh, well, we can't tell you that because transformers are hard to find and the price is going up every 3 weeks. And okay, but just give me something for today. I told all these installers, I said, look, don't spend a whole lot of time on this. Come in with a estimate. Ballpark. I have to, this is next March, I'm gonna go to the town and say, this is what we could do, and then maybe, so I said, don't get, too worked up on it. But they did just that. They got the GPS plots of the roof lines, and everybody came in pretty close on, how many panels they put on the Whitney, and so it's all, I'm gonna say, we're gonna look at $130,000 at the Whitney.
And what's the electric bill at the Whitney? How much does the Whitney pay right now for electric? And would this just cover the Whitney, or would it?
Yeah.
It would, and
So the school would be separate?
the school would be separate, but they can use net billing so that any overage would be applied to the school roof, 61 panels. So the Whitney, on this one, okay, panels, 25-year warranty, 40-year shelf life. The usage is about 40,000 kW at the school, 21,000 kW at the Whitney. We're paying about 22 cents a kilowatt on our bills right now. I think that it's a little less than that.
5,000 a year, 4,000 a year. 4,000 a year.
Mhm.
4 or 5.
And so there's, where's the guy? He's totally organized here.
Like a 25 year, yeah.
return. Wow. 87 panels? Doesn't that sound like a lot? How many do you have in your roof?
Duty.
Really?
Oh,
Well, it depends on the panels are different sizes.
the best calculation, this Devlin Energy, the guy lives in Bartlett, so it was pretty good. They're saying, save 46,000 kilowatts per year, solar cents of the grid at 15 cents a kilowatt would be about $7,000 back if you wanted to just sell the overage. And the solar generation for the Whitney would be about $10,000 in energy savings. And I got told not to talk to them so loud because I was at the back of the room making way too much noise. And they couldn't hear all the interesting stuff that was going on in front of them.
Everybody's looking at it.
I happened to see Phil there.
What would be the purpose, or what would be served by putting something on the old transfer station? Who would benefit?
That would totally just generate power. We would probably, that would almost become an energy enterprise. I don't see that as a big push immediately. I mean, down the road, because you see these big solar farms when you drive, I do, and look for them.
I mean, if the town had energy needs that it couldn't, like the town buildings weren't appropriate for solar panels, it could still put panels somewhere else.
Yes.
Those go into the grid, offset for the town.
And
uses
offset
here,
the use of.
And demonstrate a commitment to
solar.
solar.
But
It's not the same ownership.
I'll get this in a better format for us to kick around, but I mostly wanted to just get the pricing of what our installation was gonna cost on the Whitney, because it's, I think, just a lovely orientation. And,
You didn't look at the library at all?
no,
No, I mean, the building's just wrong.
it's just totally wrong.
But that would only be.
Yeah, we could jack up
But that would only be.
the library and then twist it, and it would be totally correct.
But why couldn't you do a ground? Why couldn't you do a ground mount for the library?
Could, but they've got a garden there now. You could. I went with roof because I think that the feedback from the community is going to be better for roof arrays than it is for a ground array. I think we'll have some pushback if we were to put a ground array right
Here in the
town.
center, but in the
You
transfer station, I don't think so. but-
Right.
That would be a place, there's I figured out a pretty straight formula per kilowatt that these people are using. It's around, $2.50 to $2.80 for the install. So we can figure out what it's gonna cost us to do this. And the other thing is, okay, so that right now, there's a 30% federal kickback that municipalities can take advantage of. When we did this building and the highway department, we couldn't do that. So we got an angel investor who got those credits, and we're buying power from that person at less than what the co-op would charge us. So we're saving a little now, and in 6 years, we buy that person out for 60% of the installation cost. So hopefully, we'll keep putting the money aside. We have so far. So at the end of 6 years, then we own it, and all the energy will come to our benefit. So I think that'll work out there. If we could do it at the Whitney, I think that it would help with both the school and the Whitney building. I can't see doing both things in 1 year. But I can see, and I'd love to, I don't know how long the incentives are gonna last.
Well, they're 10-year, right now, they're supposed to last for 10 years.
Do they still have?
Yeah, but we have incentives
Well,
Yeah.
ever since, you know, in the 80s, they came, they went away. It depends on what administration is in power, so I just think that it's always, if you can take advantage of it
Yeah.
while it's right there, you can't really count on it being there forever, so.
Well, if we build that big giant fire station in front of the library, then you could put it around and nobody would actually see it.
That's true.
Well, you build a
Giant
fire
light
station,
down.
so you could put the solar on top.
That's what I'm saying, you might maybe tap into both.
I think that if the fire station got oriented correctly, no, I think it could. I mean, I don't think it would take that much to bring it around to a pretty good, doesn't have to be perfect south, you can be a little east or a little west and still get, I think we should get 80% of the available sunlight.
Yeah, usually Jay's positioned it where the trucks come out on Main Street,
Well,
so the roof
you
would be.
can't always listen to Jay, because I agree with him on,
a lot of
A lot.
things.
but I don't know how well thought out his plots are for something like that.
Well, he's getting an architect to
Yeah,
plot it out for this,
Yeah.
for this project. Because it would be in the same position, if we just redid that one, it'd be in the same position.
So I guess the point is that there's some arithmetic that you can do to figure out what the cost might be. And so that would be something that we'd be able to propose to the town and say and this would be the investment that you would need to make, this would be the return that you'd get, this would be the life of it, and when you know, it doesn't pay for itself. There's no question about that if it's done right. That as long as you have the upfront money to do it, that it will eventually not only pay for itself, but then give it a dividend. I think that's why most people do it. I think if you've done that in your own home, you did that one because you wanted to be green, and that's good.
And also.
But
It's-
the green has to go both ways.
Green for green. A whole new.
But it also is a message. You know, if we start doing this for the school and the Whitney Center, it's also a message to the town,
And
to the
there's more
people.
people in the town are.
Well, and that's part of once we start looking at our, the town plan
Mhm.
for the next, master plan for the next 10 years. You know, talking about, well, you know, how do we look at where the town needs to get to in 10 years? And solar is a big part of that, and moving away from fossil fuels and it may not be in our current master plan to say that, but I'm sure by the next one we will.
well, so much of the presentation the other night was about, oh, it's the right thing to do, and I totally agree, it's the right thing to do. But when it comes right down to it, it's the money.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna drive it.
Always is.
So, you know, that's why I want to be realistic. I have such trouble with the co-op, and it's our co-op, but they have their procedures. of, trying to get the answers to money.
Mhm.
Well, I think, to speak their side, they say, well, how many kilowatts do you need? Or how many panels are you putting up? Give us a number to start with, and then we'll tell you what it's gonna cost and how you're gonna work with it.
Well, I'm gonna go back with this information to the woman I talked to, who was really nice, and she was very knowledgeable. And she did send me to this Scott McNeil, who was in charge of solar. And I already said, no, I've gone through that, I'll deal with you. And get her, to give me an idea then of infrastructure. Do we have, that's what we ran into with the highway department. Got to the end, we're gonna do the install, and the power company came and said, oh no, we have to upgrade the transformers, we can't.
That's all part of it, yeah.
They really threw a monkey wrench into, so I'm trying to get ahead of that. I don't want that to come back and bite us and say, oh, we have to put another $20,000 in the infrastructure. I would like to say that's part of the proposal. So, anyway.
And it's also something to consider if we have a lot of people starting putting solar up, is what are the capacity of the transformers around? Can they receive the amount of energy that would be made? And, and the lines and so on.
I can't see, we're not putting in a commercial array. These are houses that, if they come out ahead at the end of the year, they've done really well. But how do we need much more infrastructure if we're putting out about what we're pulling in at this point? I have a 200 amp service on my house and probably use 70 amps at any peak time with everything, Christmas with all the lights and everything. How can they say, oh, wow, you're gonna, you're putting out 40,000 kilowatts in a year?
I can understand if they are not hearing what they usually hear, which is, I'm gonna put a 3-acre installation kind of thing, and we're not talking that. We're even,
The transfer station might be.
even the old landfill site would be what, a couple of acres possibly?
It's a 5-acre, so.
But the one thing though is, say everybody jumps on board, so you get,
Yeah.
50% of the homes in Jackson are, pan out in some fashion. I think you'd really need that battery system because, if suddenly we had a period of cloudy skies and all of these solar homes need power from the grid, then you get this wild peak, that the power company isn't planning for. And so there would need to be a battery system to buffer that because, you look at.
Well, the battery system is more expensive than a generator, but it could take over for the generator. You won't need a generator because you'll have your backup to get you through.
Right, and I understand that what the power company needs is for all those homes to be
All right.
covered.
Well, the fellow that came,
Right, so we don't get a cloudy night and suddenly the power demand
Yeah.
of Carter Notch Road, triples,
Mhm.
and for a couple hours, and that's what the power company really doesn't like. And that's
Yeah.
why you see Cranmore ski area lights on,
Right.
every night, because they're paying for it whether they're on or not, because of that peak demand. But it'd be kind of cool if Jackson became like the solar flagship.
Fossil fuel free.
Right, so many homes, solar power would be one of the power plants for the state. Need hydroelectric at Jackson Falls.
Hey, we've already, that fight's a long one.
Okay,
Good report.
yeah.
Isn't power station at Jackson Falls is what started the whole thing about the,
Wild
Well,
seed,
well,
yeah.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
Roger.
I don't know. Go home.
Is that-
All right. We're making progress, some progress.
Well, that's all of them. We've got the library. I haven't met with the chief yet, so we don't have the police, we have schools, roads, solar, and affordable housing.
So, yeah,
So what's next?
I guess the thing we have to talk about is what do we do with next steps? What do we do for, how we pull things together and what kind of process we're gonna use to do that? What kind of deliverable, I think, what we expect to offer to the select.
One note, though. Just add, Gray's Inn,
Excuse me?
should we announce that the Gray's Inn was approved to proceed with that?
Oh, well, sure.
Okay. So, we met with the selectmen.
Were you gonna do that and then not announce it?
No, I wasn't sure if it's appropriate to say it here, right?
Well, it was at the select board meeting, so it's public.
I know it's public, but, okay. So we got permission from them to go to the second phase for the Gray's Inn, and that is to go out. They approved, we had presented 3 options to the board. One was do the minimum, which was basically a facelift and some painting and nothing really major. Second option was to re-site it, get rid of the bathroom in the back, kind of do some cleanup there, put a new front door in, maybe do some landscape, fix the driveway, parking area as you present to the Gray's Inn, put electricity in the
It's
library.
Gray's Inn Garage.
Gray's Inn Garage, yes.
Okay, this Gray's Inn is here,
Yes.
Yeah.
was.
But it was really, it would really be a nice thing if it gets done. And then the last was to tear it down, but they didn't, because we need storage, and people use it, so it's used. So they agreed to the second option to have us now go get quotes on what it would take and what it would cost to basically re-site it and do all of those things to the facility in phase 1. And then phase 2 would be on the inside to do maybe a new concrete floor, kind of brighten up the lights, make it more usable inside for the people that use storage.
Is it critical storage?
Yeah.
'Cause when I looked through it, it looked like the place to just dump stuff that you don't need anymore.
It's not critical storage, but it is storage. And if you didn't have it, you'd need to replicate it somewhere else
Yeah, I mean-
on campus here.
I mean, it's hard to how you would define critical. There's material in there that the highway uses. They would have to find, if that didn't exist, we would have to purchase something or they would have to build something up there to store it up there. And that was one of the options that we presented. We could buy a storage container up there, stick it up there, and they could put all their stuff up there.
Now, isn't like the back end almost hanging up?
No. Structurally, it's amazing, but it's not, except the bathroom.
If you're asking about the bathroom, yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be gone.
There's a, I mean, it used to be a building that was service, people actually worked there, and so they had to have a facility. We're talking about pulling that off
Right.
entirely,
Yeah.
and increasing the amount of distance between the river and the building.
That would give us another 5 feet.
Like
to the
some
left.
distance, you mean?
Yeah, like some distance, yeah.
But it is interesting, we were told that it's never flooded, even though the river gets high, it's
That's true, it hasn't.
And
It's too high.
there is silt in the very far bay, and at least what Jay said is that that is not from the river, but rather from actually water flowing down through the building and settling to the back because of the drainage in the space. It's an amazing ditch.
Yeah.
And it starts with that wonderful driveway
Yeah.
that they have.
With no French drain or anything. There's no, yeah, never mind.
So, yeah, so,
Is it a dirt floor now?
no, it's concrete, but it's broken up in a lot of places, so it may just need to be resurfaced. And that's phase two, if we even have to do that. It really is just to give it some landscaping, get rid of the windows, get a new door.
Facelift, a facelift.
Yes,
If they just got the front looking better, I mean, it wouldn't.
the sides look just as terrible.
Yeah, it does, but it's not as visible.
Yeah, but getting the select board to even put new windows on when the windows were busted up was pulling teeth. Instead, we boarded it up, right?
Right?
I mean, it was like, no, we're not gonna put any money at all in this. And it's like, okay, looks like hell.
Well, that's when they didn't know whether it was gonna get sold for, affordable housing. You could put a duplex in there, I'm sure.
Not like the big plow on the side. Sort of an architectural structure.
And I don't know, as we push this forward, I guess my question would be whether or not somebody like your J-Home folks might approach the select board and ask them why they might not consider tearing it down.
Well, and that's what I was asking about, the storage needs of
Yeah.
it, And when we looked at it,
Well,
that
yeah.
was the issue that came up, is there was going to be a fight with the highway department, at least.
How much square footage is in
I
there?
mean, it doesn't, it might fit a duplex, it's just a very small piece. And
It's a very small
distance
piece.
between the road and the river.
It's, what is it?
And it's
What
part
was-
of it, the
what did we
back
say? It was
end-
what, 70 by
Um,
150 or something like that?
Yep, 70 by 120.
So 10 by
Yeah,
almost 11,000 square feet.
wow. It's a lot of space.
It is a lot of space.
But part of it is on a floodplain in the back, so that would have to be.
Yeah, and if you had to build and pull forward, I mean, at most you get a couple of 3 cottages in there. Then the question is whether or not there are better sites on campus here than that. That would, which I think,
And that would have to incorporate parking.
Yeah, it was more that, it seemed like only the highway department cared about that, where lots of people care about this property, and that seemed like maybe an easy.
Yeah, I mean, again, yes, could it be purged and gotten rid of some of the stuff? Yes. But you're gonna spend money.
I agree with Bill, I think it'd be better to do something on this property if the town was gonna use one of those properties for housing.
Right.
That was more just, maybe not enough people care about that one.
Well,
We
if
can shoulder our
the
way through.
fire department rehabs that building, then the tennis court area here would be available for, then you could put, I think, 2, 3 units in. They might be townhouse units, I mean, they might be attached in order to cut down on footprint, but, you'd get them in there.
maybe look carefully at what Mike is looking at for his
Yeah.
up top, because he's not looking at some attached units.
See, for me, it'd be the opposite. Build a fire station here and then knock that down. And build them over there.
Not renovate that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other options, there's so many options around here, but, you have a home next to it, you have a little retail and a home next to it. You could build something that kind of,
I mean, would you knock it down or
Oh, yeah.
renovate it?
I don't think it's
No, because
convertible.
the police department wants
Right, yeah.
the back part of that for,
There's other spots for that.
anyway.
But that was an option. I mean, if the board said, no, let's tear it down and we'll buy other places in storage, fine. I just want to get rid of the eyesore. I'll take houses, I'll take anything. Just drive
make
across
it
the
nice.
bridge and you just see this thing. But you either think it's a slumlord or you just,
it is.
Particularly coming right out of the bridge.
yeah.
And that, little Flossie's there, and then right next to it is this.
Monstrosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do better.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah,
I would say that our next steps would be just to, let's make a list of all these we have all these options around. Well, let's get the options and then see how the puzzle pieces fit.
Sort of have a game plan.
Yeah.
I think that's
I mean, we've got lots of good ideas,
Mhm.
and some are more pie in the sky than others, but, you know, there's a lot
Yeah.
of practicalities and, you know, as they say, needs versus wants. I mean, let's get the needs, for sure, and then on top of that, let's see how that they would fit in with maybe some of these other ideas.
And we can do the checkers part first and then the chess part later. All right,
So that'll be the goal for next meeting.
Pardon?
That'll be the goal for next meeting, put that grid together?
well,
Yeah, try to get all the pieces to go into the,
so a little bit of a work session then?
yeah, could be.
I'm sure, I mean, the next meeting is July, we sure we want a meeting in July.
What about July?
It's the second.
Just asking, because I know you guys.
It would be the 13th.
Yes, it's the 13th. So it's after the holiday week.
And what's the, what would be the August date?
The 10th.
motion.
We're out of here. So we're definitely on our meeting in July is on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Come prepared to do some work. All right.
I'll see
I
you.
have motion, I heard a motion, second. Official.
Scott said-
Aye.
Thank you.
Nobody opposed?
Huh?
Nobody's opposed.
Oh, I don't know.